think that's got it going. Can't tell. Ooh. Hey, there we go. I just had the YouTube creator thing update and actually show me the picture that I'm currently streaming of Biker Bun. I was getting bored of waiting, so figured I'd just load up the stream and get started. Oh, my YouTube app just updated. There we go. Yeah, I've actually got this with the weird space I'm working in. I've got the stream set up weirdly. I'm apparently dropping a good chunk of frames. I hope the audio's fine though. Maybe it's because I got a bunch of other stuff going on. Maybe I can get away with just closing Firefox. Yeah, that'll likely help a little bit. It's a little better. Well, whatever. Either way. Yeah, I currently does that. No, that's create a clip. Is there any way to just get the chat? It's rather quiet. Hmm. Should just be my voice at the mo. The levels seem fine on OBS. Don't know if the volume's just going to be on your end. And this is why I started a little early. Oh, whatever. Being a little quiet, that should be okay. Find out. This is about as ooh, ooh. What is that? I'm only dropping around about 15% of frames. When trying to stream at 60 FPS, yeah, maybe I should just change that in the future. But whatever. We are go-go. Things are working. I got bored, as I was saying, of waiting. Everything seems to be set up and working. I've not got any of the wackiness from audio drivers. My ears will get blown out if I open anything else on the TV for a while. I can hear you with the mouth. All right, it's fine. As long as people can actually hear me, they can adjust things to whatever audio level works for them. But yeah, I don't have any of the audio driver issues like I did back in September. I have actually been able to fine tune a little bit of the focus on my words on my webcam, so it should actually be for the most part in focus. Outside of that, is there a way I can get chat without having the stream itself open? Because I've currently got the stream open on my phone, and I think that might be contributing to some of the frame drop issues that are apparent. One moment. Can I pop out chat? There we go. So now I have chat over here to the side, at least. So I might not need it on my phone. There we go. Right. Yeah, that seems to have helped a little bit with the frames. Actually, no. That is near enough the same. Alright, fuck it. We just keep the stream open on my phone then. Again, why I started early. We do the final bits of fine tuning that come from when things are going on. There we go. And it's just back up in on my phone. All right. Well, whatever. It's about a couple minutes too. Yeah, still the same around about 15%. I think that's fine. We'll be fine. Got a drink. Yeah. Okay. So let us get a go. It's basically 1 minute too. And like I say, just got the Centurion here. It seems I've got the same sort of delay between stream and my end because the stream hasn't updated on my phone. But we'll just live with that. I'll probably just have to have the end card run for a little bit uh, while I wait for the stream to catch up, so we don't end abruptly like last time. There we go. Just transitioned over. It's less than a minute at least, so it's better than it was. My tinkering with OBS settings seems to have done something. Fantastic. And it's actually 8 and you can actually see the model. Alright, good enough. So yeah, big ol' Devastator Centurion. I already started on the other two down here. Literally just blocking in with some grey for where the metallics are going to go, and a little bit of extra black, so the gun casings, the engine casing, this little bar across the top of the torso, and the missile pods casings. So we'll probably just start with that for now. Just something pretty simple. So those I did with Basilicanum. That's wash. That's a wash. Basilicanum Grey and Black Legion. Yes, there we go. I just thought I knocked the model over, but really I was just looking at me 30 seconds in the past. Dropping about 20% of frames, but it looks fine on my phone. It's definitely watchable. Casino delay, well, yeah, oh yeah. I'm not talking about like any audio delay. I mean delay between me doing a thing and the thing happening on stream. It's typical for a stream, to be fair. So yeah, just going to start off a little bit Basilicanum Grey. Just going to base coat where I want things to be silver. Shouldn't take amazingly long. I was doing this on these two last night whilst I was watching some stuff. It didn't seem to take forever. Just get in a position, yeah, where it's viewable and comfortable, and just start off. I will talk a little bit. I'll get these two stages done, and I'll talk about how I've changed the list already because I knew that it was going to happen. So we'll talk about that while I wait for these steps to dry. But for now, looking forward to getting the hobby started over the new year. I took about a week, bit over a week of a break between, over the holiday period, just to, make it feel like a new year of painting, if that makes sense. So outside of building a bunch of Seraphon, not really gotten up to too much hobby-wise lately. But like I say, just having a break over the holidays, make the new year feel new. Otherwise, it's just a constant stream of do a thing, doing thing. I already have enough of that from other things. Unavoidable, but tis adult life. There we go. It's a little bit pooling in between the barrel and that little holster. So yeah, we go. Other than that, I had to work over the holidays. That was a bit of a pain, but they weren't the worst shifts. It was just more having to do it than the process of actually doing it, if you get me. So I hope everyone's had a good holiday, at least outside of what seems to be some tonsillitis on someone's end and just the general stress that comes from the holidays. There we go. Pulling a little bit on the cables. Yeah, but for this guy, like, I am hoping to do a little bit more of the black and silver rather than just 90% yellow that you get on normal Marines. Just to make these guys, like, I think it looks a little better. I'll get this step done, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. Just with how I'm approaching these. If I ever do any other Centurion, well, not Centurion, but Devastator style units, I might also do a similar thing just to help tie them together. I don't really care too much about pooling, but it's a habit. It's a good habit to keep going. So yeah, we'll just get the silver done on this arm. Well, quote unquote silver. Prepping for the silver. Yeah, the inside. where most of it actually is, and in a really awkward place. But fuck doing sub-assemblies. Oh no, I can't monetize this stream. What will I do? I don't know, it might be. I'm already about 4 minutes in. I don't know what the cutoff is anymore. They keep changing it, just like with Twitch. Mm-mm. Go. All right. Most of that done. A little bit of that cabling there. Oh god, I'm not looking forward to actually doing the silver. I'll actually have to be careful. I'm already getting this on bits that are going to be yellow. But yeah, with these, I want to do a little bit more black on them than on my other guys. For just rinse off my brush because I don't know how long I'll be talking for. I'll use this guy as an example. Well, like putting where he's in focus. I've got black obviously on the gun casings like I would on my normal guys, and then you've got this engine on the back. But I've also, like I say, done it on the missile pods on this little bar, and I've kept most of this up top silver, or it's going to be silver from how I've planned it, for a couple of reasons. Where like it just follows the theme, like these are weapons, so do their borders in black. It looks a bit better, it makes them look a little heavier because more of the model is dark. But also comparing like the width of the torso between this one that's still all white and this one that's got the black, it kind of helps a little with the overall chunkiness that Centurions are notorious for. Like, this looks like a torso with some missile pods on the side, rather than a really wide torso with some missile pods in it, which is kind of technically what it actually is. But it looks a little better, I feel. So, yeah, just doing that. Sort of emphasize that they're in a big, basically a power loader, rather than it just being like a suit of armor that's just really big. And it'll just hopefully sell that concept a little better in my mind. See how it goes. And like I say, if I do any more Devastator units, I might. I don't know. You never know what you might end up needing in the future. Oh, did the stream drop? No, it's still going. Okay. It just sort of paused on my phone, and I got a little worried there. Oh, I'm apparently dropping a whole bunch more frames, though. What is going on? It is still streaming, right? According to OBS, I am. Hold on a moment. Apparently got excellent connection, etc. Yeah, it's still going. Okay, I think. I can't tell anymore. No, it just seems to stop. What the fuck? No, okay. It's still saying it's live. I'm fine. Also, hello. Hi, Ryan. Okay, yeah, it is still live. It's just a YouTube app fucking with me. Okay, thank you for that. All right, that might make things a little easier then if it's not streaming the stream on my phone actively. No, you've dropped. Sorry to be the one to. Don't fucking do that. It actually makes me like, oh right, yeah, no, duh, you wouldn't be saying that if you couldn't hear me. That little brief moment of ah. Oh yeah, anyway, carrying on then. Yeah. But yeah, if I do any more heavy weapons units, I might do a little bit more of the darker colors on them, just to make them look a bit heavier, just make them a bit more distinct. And yeah, like I say, just on these guys, it just makes sense to emphasize. There's a bit more stuff going on physically. They're just a guy in a suit. It's a guy in a suit in a suit. Or whatever ridiculousness these guys actually are. Like I say, it's like a power loader, really. It's not even on camera, Dan. Got to keep your wrist on the edge there, yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, this should be a pretty interesting year for me, hobby-wise. What with doing this, this probably is going to be my main focus drawing for 40k. It's because the Necrons are most of the way there. The Votan, most of the way there. There's like a unit, and I don't really intend on adding any more to them right now. Like that, they're fun at 1k, but there's not enough units for me to want to play 2k of them because I'd have to like basically just repeat a bunch of stuff. Admech, I think are just going to be retired. I'll keep the combat patrol of them and the bits that I think are fun, but they're not a priority. That's for sure. And the orcs, I'll just have them when it happens. I'm not vibing with them in this exact moment, but I do enjoy them. So they're not being retired. It's more like, when I feel like it. Keep them small. Very small thematic force. So I can focus on this. I can focus on the Seraphon. Now that those are a thing, I think I'm zeroing in on what I want to do with their colours. Seem to have had an idea that works. Uh, there's the turnip stuff. I've actually started painting a couple of those. Just because I'm going to keep those guys really simple. I'm not going to go anything extravagant. It sort of matches the tone to keep them sort of like that. Sort of don't go crazy with the color scheme. Just keep them simple and kind of dirty looking. And considering I'm going to be sculpting some stuff for those guys soon, hopefully whilst I'm off this week, uh, it's gonna just sort of like I don't want to just sculpt something really janky and then do my best on the paint job and just have like you know it just looked really mismatched, wouldn't it? Just having like a really high effort paint job on Daniel's second ever attempt at properly sculpting. Be really weird looking. Like yes, I'll get this amazing digital artist to do a photorealistic texture on the Minecraft cow. Yes, that sounds like an amazing idea. Yeah, there we go. Just get that in the armpit, in the elbow, on the mounting point for the gun. You can't really see that, but you're really not missing a whole lot. But there we go. That's a part of contrast paints for you. You can just slap them on, and they just sort of do the thing. Or just any of these sort of quick style paints now that the other paint producers are starting. Well, I say starting. This past year, they've been getting caught up, shall we say? Is to get that on that piston. I don't really mind too much if it goes on somewhere that's going to be yellow because it's going to be difficult to paint the yellow over it, but at the same time, it's yellow. It was going to be a little bit of a slog to do anyway. But I think that's all of the bits I want silver, except for the mounting point for this. This guy's on the specs and technically the eyepiece, but I don't think it's really worth going over that tiny little area there. Just some back bits. Don't really need to do this, but I'll do it. Around the inside, the elbow, and some other little spots that I just missed. But yeah, that's hobby planned for the year. You better not. Better not be dissing the Minecraft cow. It's had enough time as it is. No, not the actual Minecraft cow. Just so like there's an image that I was actually talking to John about it last night, just because we were talking about some art weirdness where someone put a photorealistic cow texture on the Minecraft cow. It just looks weird. Like it's just a cube with a photo of a cow's face on the front of it, and that's its head. It's like, okay, that's a texture pack. It's more of an update than the devs ever seem to give that game, though. So people will eat whatever scraps you give them. Hey, I'll do the gun casings, and then we'll discuss how I've actually changed the list because it is basically going to be you're going to be seeing bits of it. I doubt you're going to be seeing everything because I only really intend to paint on this guy tonight. The other two are down there already at the stage I want to get them to. But yeah, these guys should be fun to field. It's big, chunky guys, big guns. That sounds hilarious. Yeah, I'm sure if you just Google search like realistic Minecraft cow, you'd find it. People memed on that image for about I'd say a day, which is a long time in on certain social media sites, so I'm sure there will be plenty of traces on it. And then I don't really mind if I get the black elsewhere because getting a little black underneath your silver is kind of half of the point. It's just if I do grey, it matters a little less if I get it on somewhere that's going to be yellow. There, just need to do the inside of this gun. Big old light cannon. But yeah, just decided to start off with these guys. I could have started off um, with Assault Marines, like just the 5 guys with jump packs, but I got 2 of those units. So starting off with something you're going to be seeing again later just sounds kind of boring. These guys are a little different. That was an app updating on my phone. Okay. And yeah, I want to keep this interesting for me and for folks because, well, I don't want to give up on this. Even if I don't get the full 2K painted within the year like I'm wanting to, I can at least, get it to a good enough point. Like, say, if I manage to keep to this the entire year, and I get to the end of the year and I've not done it, and I'm like, that's a bit disappointing. But then I can say to myself, okay, but you're closer to that 2K now. Maybe you can get to it by March. And, that might be that little bit of motivation to still get 2K done, just not within a calendar year. I don't know if I'd stream those additional streams or not. To be fair, it's the streaming part that I'm most like, yeah, will I keep up to this for an entire year? Who knows? What I will also do, actually, I think I'll put some black on this crest on the shoulder pad here, just so it matches the Crux Terminatus on my Terminators. Yeah, there we go. Might get mistaken for Imperial Fists having yellow and black, but it's nothing new to these guys. And I can hear a car engine, or probably a bike engine, way off in the distance. Right, I don't mind if I get the black elsewhere, just fucking get it on. I've got some excess, so let's not waste. Just put it on this guy too. Keep it consistent across the unit, just slop it on. It'll find its way into the nooks and crannies. Yeah, see it settling. Stops looking just like a big black blob and starts gaining that definition from the contrast pooling. I freaking love some of this stuff, it's so useful. Honestly, contrast paint is one of those weird things where, like, yeah, it's marketed with this express purpose, but boy howdy, sometimes it does other stuff better than the thing it's marketed for. Alright, so we've based those neutral tones. Let's bring this guy back in where he's going to be in focus. Uh, as for the list, if anyone watched the introductory video, I'm not sure how many or who has, but that showed off what my original version of the list was. I think, I forgot the bar. Screw it, I'll just paint that on whilst I talk. And that list was, what was it? 2 squads of assault intercessors, just 5 guys. 2 squads of jump intercessors, 5 guys. the Land Raider that is a bunch of Twitters suddenly updated. Not Twitters, Discord suddenly updating because it's realized I'm not looking at the one on my desktop. Yeah. Assault Intercessors, Jump Intercessors, Blade Guard, Inner Land Raider, Vanguard Veterans with a Jump Captain, Normal Captain with the Blade Guard, etc., etc. You can go back and watch that video for the list. But the main change, because I said it in the video, that the list was likely going to be changing if and when GW caught up and actually updated the Blood Angels Index to be compatible with the new units, i.e. the Jump Intercessors. Because a bunch of characters, to deal with the introduction of the Jump Intercessors and the regular Assault Marines going to Legends. Because with the way how character attaching works, each character has a set list of units they can attach to. So say I can't have Dante join a unit of scouts. Not sure why you would ever do that, but that could be funny. Could do stuff like that in an old edition, but I think that just made it really difficult to balance because of how character bonuses worked and things. So they updated it. Chaplains can now join Death Company, and I think captains can join jump captains can join Sanguinary Guard. I don't really intend on using any Sanguinary Guard just yet. They're not the best, and also they don't really match the theme of my Lamenters. But chaplains can join Death Company, and I like Death Company. So what I've done, Death Company are an expensive unit. 5 guys is like 200-ish points, a bit more than 200-ish points, the ones with jump packs. So to make space for them, I dropped the captain that would be joining the Blade Guard. I dropped the combi the combi lieutenant, the good one that people use, because I don't expect his points increase to have made him survive list changes anyway, and those points changes are about to happen this month. Drop those 2 characters. Dropped a squad of the regular intercessors. So I've only got 1 battle line unit, but I think that should be enough. Replaced the captain with a Judicia. So now the Blade Guard have a character. Can I join Death Company, Dan? Maybe if you turn into a homicidal maniac. So yeah, Judicia with the Blade Guard. So now instead of a captain that gives them the extra stratagem and a combat steroid for himself, you've got a character with some precision, so the character can target characters. That was a sentence. With his big executioner's blade, and gives the unit fights first. So either where they're charging or they're being charged, or if it's a turn later and they're still slugging it out, the Blade Guard are always going to be going first while the Judicia is alive. That sounds pretty good. The other change, I think that was the main change. I'm turning around as if the army is still set up in front of me. That's mainly the changes. It also gave me some points to play, but I think it let me give characters some enhancements. I will double check that. I don't 100% remember for sure. But if I do have enhancements, thanks, I'm on it. You go crazy. I don't know. Go drink some blood. It'll seem to do the work for some people. If I do have enhancements, I remember the enhancements I was considering would be enough to either have the enhancements on those 2 characters, it was about 55 points, or take the enhancements off and throw in a Tech Marine. It sounds random, but my list has a Land Raider. It was a Brutalis Dreadnought and a Thunderstrike. I'm remembering the vehicle half of the list now. Yeah, my list has it has 2 Dreadnoughts, a Brutalis and a Librarian. It has the Thunderstrike speeder, the flying around with like a laser cannon and missiles and things, and it's got a Land Raider. So the same way I'm having these guys interact with the Librarian, where the Librarian points to them and teleports them away somewhere, I could have a pocket Tech Marine in the list as well. Have the Tech Marine babysit the Librarian Dreadnought, and if he needs to go somewhere else, have the Librarian just send him to whatever vehicle he needs to go to and get some repairs going. It would be stupid. I don't know if it would be good, Pocket Tech Marine, though. It is honestly tempting. I will look at the list if I can do it. I might run it as like a side option for the list because the Tech Marine is already fully painted up. I did it a couple of years ago. So I wouldn't need to paint any additional models to do it. I could just have a mode of the list of, okay, time to take off some enhancements, pocket repairs on some vehicles. Could be silly. I do also have space in the Land Raider because Land Raider can take 12 guys, can have 12 guys in it. Neither of that, either way of phrasing that sounds great. And I am currently putting in 7 between the 6 Blade Guard and a character joining them. So there's 5 empty seats in that Land Raider. I could also just put the Tech Marine in one of those seats. I think it's hilarious enough to work. Yeah, people aren't going to expect surprise. Here's a field engineer come to fix you up. Which servo is it that you're feeling the slight tingle in? So I could pocket Tech Marine. I could have him hang out in the Land Raider because I don't know. Just if I wanted to prioritize the Land Raider, 'cause that'd be one of those ones like I tried the list a couple of times and see what vehicles get prioritized by my opponents. If it's the Land Raider, he can just sit in the Land Raider because the teleport ability from the Librarian Dreadnought does fail on a 1. I have to roll a 2 through 5, and I've used the ability 2 or 3 times so far this edition. I somehow have a grass tuft glued to the edge of my desk. 2 or 3 times this edition, and it has failed at least once. So it's not 100% reliable. And when it does fail, it hurts the Dreadnought. So, actually, if I have a Pocket Tech Marine next to the Dreadnought because the teleport failed, the Tech Marine could just repair the Dreadnought. Yeah, okay, fuck it, it works. I presume because both of those abilities, the repair and the teleport, are done in the end of the movement phase, it's controller's choice. Seems to be the case in most things. So yeah, that sounds quite funny. Just deliver a repairman. There are too many jokes I want to make, and most of them relate to work. Right, how are we drying on here? For the most part, outside of some like corners and crevices, this is mostly dry now. And a little bit where maybe applied a little too thickly. But we'll manage. And I can always reapply some I will end up reapplying some black, because more than likely, I'm going to get some yellow on some bits that are going to be black. Right, so let's just wash off the brush. Because I'm going to be using this same brush for the yellow. Because it is a workhorse. It is just one of the Citadel ones. Its fibers did fray a long time ago. But if it's for just like, I just want to make this guy yellow, it's one of my better brushes for it, honestly. Should probably find some cheap synthetic brushes that are a similar shape. Most of the synthetic brushes I find are like these sort of square flat ones, and these are useful. You can see this one's been used. Those bristles are no longer white, but like, you want the different shapes of your bristles just to make sure that you've got all the different kind of shapes that are comfortable to paint with. Right. So yeah, as with all these guys, we're starting off with Avalon Sunset. We're going to need a couple brushfuls at least. No such thing as too much when you're painting a bunch of guys that are yellow. So put some on the palette. Brush is already a little wet from when I just cleaned it. So yeah, here we carry on with the most boring part of the process. Making things the colours they're meant to be. This needs to be a little thinner. It's just a little sticky. There we go. So yeah, I might actually try out Pocket Tech Marine. It's actually a cute idea. Is there anything else I really want to try out with the list? 10th is going in a specific place for me. Where like just playing these guys how I want seems to be going okay. I'm having fun games. Even if I lose, it tends to be close, which is good enough for me. Even if my like army and detachment choice is probably still bottom of the barrel right now. I haven't actually checked any of that stuff for a little while. But you know, if I'm losing games, it's close, which I will absolutely take. And it took me a good while to actually start losing games. To be fair, now that I think on it, I do need to get. I don't know if it would be this month, but I do want to get a start on updating my Necrons. I still haven't got the Codex or the battle cards yet, just because, like, with the Secret Santa, some of the people in the chat today are. I'm just saying that as if there's other people watching. Yeah, there's some of the people in the chat are in. I was like, okay, so December's having Necrons updating. Necrons are, one of my favorite armies. That would be a really obvious thing to get me for a Secret Santa if someone wasn't too sure. So I won't buy any of it this month. I will wait until after the Secret Santa to know what I have been given and know what I can buy without accidentally getting two of them. Because like getting two of like certain units, that's fine. That would be fine. I'm okay with that. Getting two of the Codex, it'd be a little awkward. It's like, what do I do with the second one? Just sell off the one I bought myself, I guess. Keep the one that was a gift if I could remember which one was which. If anyone could tell. I don't know. So yeah, I've just held back on updating my Necrons just yet. I think that was a smart move. Meant I could prioritize getting some stuff for Christmas as well. This entire shoulder pad's going to be yellow, so screw being careful. I'll say that. The inside's going to be white. Whatever. The white goes over the yellow just fine. Or the light grey goes over the yellow just fine. When in doubt, don't paint white. Yeah, it's already coming together fairly well. But yeah, I'm glad I finally got around to booking some more time off again. And I needed it. Even on my weird ass work pattern, just week after week of the same with like no particular goal. It's just like, just deal with things as they happen. It's like, okay, just deal. Oh, phone wanted to go to sleep. There we go. Apparently, I'm dropping like 50% of frames. I wonder if my parents are streaming something in the other room. But yeah, so just having a little bit of a break after a few months of just working solid. Felt good. I know I'm gonna have some time off in April as well because my parents are going to be going on holiday. That'll make for an easy stream at least then. Just go back in the living room like I did back in September. There we go. Yeah, that's already starting to look pretty keen. Do need to test out. I'm just trying to keep words flow of consciousness going. I do need to actually test out the list still. Like I've had the list written for about a month, a bit over a month, more like 5 weeks, and have not had the chance to use it. Just because like over the holidays, it's really hard to just like get down and play games. Like between work, between Christmas, between New Year's, just not had the chance to play again just yet. So first game of 40k I play. If they're okay with 2k, I will throw the list at them and see how it fares, whoever I'm against. As long as it's like, the normal primary, secondary mission setup. Sometimes people just want to play like as bash stat lines together. It's like, okay, it's not really testing because the priorities are so different. Those are games that don't really care about winning or losing. There's nothing to take away from them other than, I don't know, numbers. But I don't know. It's a way to play, ain't it? There we go. I won't lie, ever since saying Pocket Tech Marine, I'm just sort of like giving the Tech Marine in my mind like a German accent. It's like, when I think Pocket Medic, I think TF2. Not that that's really a game I play. But like, I'm pretty sure that's where that phrase came from, or at least popularized it. I'm not 100% there. So just like, I don't know, just a dreadnought with a tiny little tac marine just sitting in his shirt pocket. It's like, here, friends. This yellow is going on quite nicely. Always forget how nice of a colour Avalon Sunset is. Not that you could really tell with the lighting in my room. I might want to get some lamps. Yeah, it's a bit more saturated on my end. Uh, I'll use a finer brush to get down for the forearms and under the shoulder pads. Yeah, let's do the butt plate. Not the biggest deal if I get some yellow on a bit that's going to be silver, because it'll be too difficult to re-layer if it's needed. And get those toes. This is covering the black a little better than I expected. Okay. Yeah. I hope the stream is still going. I've not had anything tell me otherwise. Pretty sure someone would have popped up on Facebook if there was an issue. There we go. Might take a couple layers on the bits that did get some black on them, but it just looks like he's wearing just like a white shirt. Right, let's just sneak in, get some yellow on the head. I do always like the Centurion helmets. They're just so much more like angular, layered looking. I think I way back I did use one for a chaplain conversion, but the problem is Centurion heads are also just like a lot bigger. So like on an old Marine, because it was before Primaris where I did that conversion, I think that model is lost to time now at this point. He just looked like a damn bobblehead. It was kind of funny. But it passed quite well for a chaplain because, like, oh, his helmet is different and it doesn't look like a skull, but it does look big and mean. So it was good enough. Yeah, before I switch to a different brush, let's just relayer some bits that are going to need that extra bit of opacity for the black. And just jam it in some corners and things. Yeah, and then around the emblem. Like I say, this is probably the most boring bit of any paint job, just getting the base coats down. But it's unfortunately necessary. Unless you do purely contrast, then, well, you still have to make sure everything's the same or the correct base coat's there. Be it white or black or whatever little undershading you want to try and do. It's a process that's always needed. Even with an aerosol, you still have to make sure you get every angle. Get it all up in there. Had that issue when I was spraying my Seraphon the other day. Because like they're quite angular and pointy. So they look great as Xenofold. Just because you could see in between like the scales and like the angles and the shapes on the faces with them being reptilian. But it was also like, God, their tails. Like making their tails putting their tails like sticking up behind them like the Saurus warriors makes them really difficult to rank up. Now that was an issue for gameplay back in Warhammer Fantasy. Not an issue when playing Sigmar, but boy howdy is it an issue when you're putting like so many lizard men on a shelf. That was just a pain. Have to have particular sculpts standing in front of other ones. Doing base coast seems like handy warm up. It's great for like Nope, knocked a guy off my desk. It's great for like building up the motor skills, but it's the least interesting part if you get me. But it needs to. But yeah, just sort of like rank and filing the Seraphon up so they actually fit on my shelf. That's annoying, but I might increase my shelf space at some point just by moving them. Yeah, yeah, a bit more yellow. And also learning Sigma, that's going to be a process. Because that looks like at this point Sigma, with not that Sigma was complicated, but with 40k getting simplified, I'm looking at some of the rules and it's like Sigma seems like it's the more complicated game out of the two now. It's because you have to like pick a lot more before a game. From what I can tell, I could be entirely wrong, or it could just be entirely negligible in an actual game once I actually am playing. But it's always a little intimidating learning a new game. Just go all of there, all of there. But I get to feel Dinosaur Man, so what does it matter? I am liking the idea of. Oh, that was still black, so that's it's not on camera because it's behind a cable. But yeah, whoops, that was still wet. But I am liking the idea still of painting them up with the Ixalan inspired color schemes, like the Magic the Gathering dinosaurs. Just because I wanted something kind of quite colorful already, and those do match that. Or at the very least, using them as inspiration and jumping off point. It's a lot of. It's not just green, like some are green, but it's not just greens. There's like yellows and purples and blues, and it all looks quite nice. And some of the schemes seem to be based off of actual existing birds, which is quite common in paleo art, where you're just like, oh, we don't know what colors it would be, so I'll just copy something that's still alive. You know, educate the closest you could do to an educated guess to what colors are dinosaurs when you don't have any specimens of fossils that still have, say, pigmentation, or any living specimens because we don't have Jurassic Park. But yeah, paleo art's actually quite interesting to follow, at least if it's something you do want to get into. I kind of worked backwards because it was a couple of years ago, I believe it's All Tomorrows it's called, which is something called a Spec Evo book. And like the whole concept of like the genre of Spec Evo is you make a what if scenario, and then you sort of like with semi scientific justification say like, oh, this is how this would evolve in this environment or under these circumstances. And a lot of the fiction part is sort of like just creating that scenario. Like in All Tomorrows, it's like, oh, humans got invaded by this alien species that's mastered genetic manipulation, and they sort of like use humans as a stock to make a bunch of like different subspecies and other species and spread them throughout space, and then they just disappear. So the other half of the book is like, well, left alone without their masters, how do these subspecies evolve from where they are and in these certain environments? And the art is freaky, just because there's like that level of uncanniness to it. And I went on a tangent. So yeah, I went from there to looking at paleo art rather than the other way around, where a lot of Spec Evo is inspired by the same process of paleo art. So, whoops. Once again, I cannot do things the normal way. But it's an interesting rabbit hole. You find all sorts of projects, some old, some new, some that you remember watching as a kid as TV shows. Like The Future is Wild, if anyone remembers that. That was basically what would become Spec Evo. And it's all kind of fascinating. You sort of like it's a weird intersection between some science and I won't say it's actual science. It's a person's understanding of science and art. and it's just kind of interesting to see what gets come up with. Like, I forget the name of the project. Can't comment on stream, but I am watching Dinosaur Seraphim Ideas on. Yeah, okay, okay. So it looks like we got someone that can't. Oh, is it? Okay. But yeah. Uh, where was I? Where was I? Yeah, Future is Wild, Specula. Yeah, that's just sort of like a. It's always nice to find that weird sort of intersection between science and art, and it's always fascinating to watch and see what comes up with. That was what it was. I was trying to remember a particular one where like the the conceit was, oh, we've got this entire world to terraform. It's just terraform it enough to the point where we could just stick a bunch of birds on it and see what the birds evolve into. And you get all sorts of like they just start looking at first like different, as you would imagine, just permutations of birds, just trying to adapt to specific skill sets to survive in different like ecological niches. And then they just over time just start filling niches further and further away. Like you end up with freaking like parakeets that over several million years evolved into sky whales. It's just like, oh, okay, a bit crazy. But then you look at how actual whales evolved, and it's like, it's not unprecedented. Whales basically evolved from funny-looking hooved dogs that decided that they really liked fish. So they just evolved to dive further and further into the water until they just became completely aquatic. So it's just like, yeah, it sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but shit's already crazy here. I mean, damn, dinosaurs turned into chickens, you know. This is taking a while, and it's going to take a while longer because most things are going to need additional coats. This is why it's streamed, to make it tolerable. We've not even been going for an hour yet. Just hope my rambling is interesting enough. Maybe from the front. The idea of doing those extra bits of black is definitely selling itself to me quite nicely. Gives a little bit of variety, despite how overlaid and chunky these fuckers be. I'll just remove that notification so if she does want to say anything additional while she can't comment on the actual comments of the stream, I'll at least be notified. Let's get the underside of the shoulder pads. That is showing up amazingly, but I don't know how else to do it. Just get in underneath here. Don't technically really need to do this, but feel bad just catching a glimpse of that white undercoat and be like, yeah, I could have made that yellow. Didn't. There's a bunch of underspots I've missed here. I really should have kept these in sub-assemblies, like keeping the legs separate from everything else, just so I can get underneath bits, but I don't know, sub-assembling infantry just is like that's the point where you should stop. Vehicles, okay, sure. My dreadnought still comes apart, and it's sort of designed in a way where you can fit it back together. But infantry, nah, nah. The shoulder pads and the guns get glued on. Some people do that with regular Space Marines, and it's like, goodness gracious, you are relying on yourself actually getting those done in order to field them. This sounds stressful. Back of the firstborn legs. There are some bits on the legs here that I could do in silver because you can see some. It won't show up amazingly on camera, but you can see some brackets that go around the back of the legs to help the front of the armor like stay put. So I don't mind base coating everything there yellow, and then just deciding later on that like I want them silver, just to differentiate them. A little bit of me wants to go in with a bigger brush, but that would just mean more cleanup in the future. Oh, that's still wet there. That's taking forever to dry. Whatever that little well of black I'm picking up is, so let's just attack that with a dry brush. Whatever it is down there, fucking get out. Get out. Hopefully that dries up sooner. Let's go from this angle. Get the back of that heel. That's Patreon. So that's not people talking. I think with that, that'll be everything that I want to be. Ooh, back. I can see the back of his groin plate. Whatever you'd actually call that. That's most things that I want to be yellow would have been hit. That's a second Patreon update. Most things that I would want to be yellow being hit by a layer of yellow. Outside of stuff that is still apparently drying. The Fiend. There is the back of... Do I really want to bother trying to get all the way in there? You'll never see it. Nah, fuck it. So, yeah, I think everything that I want to be yellow. Oh, there's some bits on the weird block of the torso, but it's mostly yellow that I would want to be yellow. If I keep saying it, it'll eventually be true. Inside of the hand. Oh, that's still drying. Apparently, I didn't wait and ramble long enough for everything for all the black and the grey to dry. What a pain. I'm not used to not having talked long enough when given the chance. Yeah, that gives us an idea of where we're going to be going. I think that works quite nicely. It should look heavy enough and still be yellow. Just gonna take a quick break for a drink. What were the Patreon updates? Yeah, okay. They just queued up some updates and sent them both to me at the same time. Ah, look. It's all of you, kind of. This is the show that I am actually watching, don't worry. You're there, off to the side on my phone. Actually using the webcam tripod for my phone and the camera tripod for my webcam. I have actually managed to find a position where it's sort of like wedged in place, so it should barely move even if I knock it. The absolute genius of, just shove it in a hole, or make a hole for it to be shoved in. Okay. Still need to do some extra coats on a lot of areas, because that is both patchy and you can see previous coats through it. Still a chunk to go. Why has this got to be the most boring bit? Oh well. We go on. Let's get a little bit more yellow on the palette again. This stuff is a little gloopy just because it's an old pot, but that's fine if I'm putting it on a wet palette. It's going to get used. It is going to get watered down. There we go. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the points changes. Chances are that'll mean that this list will need to be adjusted and fine-tuned again. Can't see much of the Blood Angel stuff being made more expensive, considering how bottom of the barrel they seem to be at the moment. Not even that they're bad, they're specialized in one very particular specific way, and that is get in your face. So, outside of the Combi Lieutenant that I took out of my list already, that's the only thing I could really see going up in points to balance. The Necrons are probably gonna see some, I'd imagine some points reductions actually, considering what people were saying when the Codex came out. Like some stuff got nerfed, but stayed relatively the same points. So I'd imagine the points would be adjusted a little bit to compensate further. I actually don't know what's top of the barrel at the moment outside of I know Eldar is still good, but that's probably just going to be evergreen when you can manipulate dice rolls in a dice-based game. So really, how much can you do there? They seem to be a bit more balanced than they were right at the start, that's for sure. And honestly, the balancing has actually simplified them a little bit too, which is probably for the best. There's some irony there. It's like, whoops, we accidentally made something complicated too good. Well, just make it less complicated. And would you know, that actually balances it a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That extra thick sample is really helped with the opacity on this. I actually don't know what's doing amazingly well at the moment. There's not been a lot to talk about. Like, usually the tactic would be, if I'm more interested, just watch like Auspex tactics videos, just because he has a way of just sort of like simplifying stuff and presenting the information in a way that's easy to digest. But like, I don't know, I've just not watched him for a few weeks. A lot of the updates that have happened that relate to Warhammer over the Christmas holidays have been the Necron stuff, and just other things that I've not really felt the need to watch. I don't know. Still a shame that like I just couldn't find a place with the Mechanicus. I love the models aesthetically, that's why I'm keeping some. I do plan on selling off most of the rest, but like I don't know, they just design like game wise, they just can't seem to find a niche that makes them feel one different enough from other armies to justify their existence, and two usable. It's just a bit awkward with them. I've definitely found my niche with the Votan. I've adjusted the list I've played with them recently. Just like I gave the Berserks a go. They didn't. They have ever yet to do much. So I was like, okay, well I can drop the Berserks. I dropped the Iron Master, the HQ that repairs, just because the unit I paired him with models never lasted long enough. If they got damaged, they were going that turn. They never lasted long enough for him to actually repair them. Like the +1 to hit is nice, but I could save the +1 to hit in terms of like the points I would be spending, which is like 60, which is a lot for a Votan character, even if it is 5 little guys, and just put that somewhere else. So I dropped the Berserks, replaced them with another Halfkin unit. So I've basically dropped 10 guys to 11 because between the 5 Berserks uh, and the Iron Master, his assistant, and the little Ecogs, that's 10 bodies. So I've dropped those 10 bodies for a different 10 bodies. They're sticky and can hold objectives, and I can split that unit in half as long as half of it's going in a Sagittor, which is a vehicle I already had on my list. And I threw in another Carl. So I've basically got another character that just like, oh, this little unit I'm with has got lethal hits, and I can point and say "Oi" to give something a judgment counter. So that's more angles that the army's faction rule can happen from. And I intend to use that because I can give the Carl a piece of equipment. I've got a choice between 2 pieces of equipment for him. One that gives the unities with a 5 up invulnerable, or one that gives the unities with deep strike. So I'm giving that little 5-man squad deep strike. It's like, screw it, I want that objective. Drop down your battle line. It's 10 OC from 5 guys. Well, more like 11 from the call as well. It's like, I want that. I'm going to go get that. Because that was also an issue of my list, is that it could really get control of one side of the board because the other side of the board had absolutely nothing on it. So with this way, I can put something on the other side of the board, even if it is 5 guys. 5 guys and their commander, at least, yeah. So that'll be fun to try. That'll be fun to try as like a 1K list. Because I've just really vibed with the Votan for some reason. I don't typically like dwarves. Like, they just don't appeal to me usually. It's like, ah, yes, they are people, but shorter, and they like to build things and spend money. Like, I can relate, but it's not massively appealing. But something about the Votan where they sort of like, they're like the Tau in that they feel a lot more hard sci-fi in what is basically a future fantasy setting that kind of makes them appealing. It's like, ah, yes, normal sci-fi. This is actually refreshing in this setting. And yeah, I mean, I technically do play Tau as well. I've just not gotten the last model I needed to make function. Oh, I won't say functional, a legal 1K list. I don't think my plan of reconstructing the 8 and 10th edition is going to be all that functional of a list. To explain my correction there, because it's a bunch of characters. That's it. It's 1,000 points of various Tau commanders. But will it be fun? Yes. If I fail, the games will be quick. My movement phase will be absolutely lightning. Make the custodies jealous. So yeah, just at some point I need to grab a broadside, and that'll be that list assembled. Because I've got everything else. I got Farsight, I got Riptide, I got all the other commanders like assembled and at least base coated. That's something I miss from playing that list as well. Like it used to be like, oh, what do I refer to that unit to make it easy to describe? So, oh, this unit shooting at that unit. I could with that army list because I painted them up like Power Rangers. Say, okay, this blue guy is shooting at them. The blue one is at them. The pink one's at them, etc. And that actually made declaring my attacks really simple. And I do miss that. And it would be a fun, goofy list where it's like I just want to fuck around. I will have the option. Plus, I'm just really proud of how my Farsight came out, so I get to put that on the table. Phone is trying to go sleep again. There we go. Yeah, if that list doesn't work, at least the games will be quick, which is what you can ask for, really. I think we're starting to get there with this coverage. Just make sure that is yellow, 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 yellow. Let's actually keep this in frame, eh? I literally marked on my mat. Down, I literally just painted the line like, put it here, dummy. That's where it's gonna be on frame, and then I just ignore it. But this second base coat with a little bit of thicker paint is doing the job, and it's actually looking like solid yellow rather than patches of yellow. Except for maybe the inside of this hand again. I could have sub-assembled this, but fuck that. And now his feet. Tell you what, let's just get the bigger brush. I've gotten in all the fine places, I think, so let's just hit it with a hammer. Yeah, there we go. So now I'm debating the next step. Do I? How far are we in? We're about an hour in. I could start putting down some of the silvers. I could start putting down some of my shading for the yellow. Both. If I put down the silvers, there's a black wash. That might mess with the yellows, but if I put... I think I'll shade the yellows next, yeah. Because it's easier to recover from that method. Are you trying to capture Big Tesco? I don't know what that's in reference to just because of the stream delay, but if it is the Votan, I could definitely believe them just trying to capture a store. It's like, oi, that's where we keep the sausages. You get out of there. Literally 90% of the time they get in a fight is because someone touched their stuff. Come on, just get rid of some of the extra little patchy bits. Doesn't need to be perfect because this is all going to get covered in contrast in some form or another, but I'd like it to be mostly there. Um, but if I mess up with the silvers, it'll be trickier to repair. thicker paint does dry a little quicker too, which is helpful. There we go. You don't always have to thin your paint into just dirty water. There are advantages to keeping things a little thicker. Just got to know when to do it. Yeah, I think I will do those little braces on the leg in silver too, just to add a little bit more separation. Make the back look a little darker and more mechanical than the front, because it is. So let's help sell that. Yeah, okay. I think I've gotten where I'm getting with the yellow on this. Front toe looks a bit awkward. Right. And I've still got plenty of yellow for when this is being shaded. In fact, no, I'll do the silvers first, because then I can do all the shading at the same time then. Mostly. So, let's get the lead belcher. There is a logic to what I'm doing, it's just not great. Oh, this is the old pot, where it's a bit gloopy. So, I mean, it'll work better on a wet palette. And the yellow should mostly be dry. But just to make sure, we'll start with the guns. Just get some silver on them barrels. Don't really need to be too complicated for all this. It's all just going to be metal. And if I get metal on black, well, black goes over metal, and metal goes over black quite well. So I don't need to be too worried about being clean. And all these pipes, all these little energy cells, all these little mechanical bits and hydraulics. Because big boys wearing big pants. I could get away with just dry brushing on some of this stuff too. Yeah. Compare how the silver looks to just basically with Basilicanum. And yeah. The Basilicanum definitely helps the silver along, just because having a dark colour under your metallics is usually a good idea. Helps make it a little bit more reflective. Tell you what though, setting up this stream, like I knew I would now have the space to stream, but boy howdy, it was interesting figuring it out. I've got my laptop next to me on my bed on a drawing pad, so the fans are exposed. I've got the tripod wedged in front of my leg, making space for my leg, and sort of jammed up against my desk slash drawer, using the handles from the drawer to hold it in place. My phone, as you saw, is over here on a tripod so I can look at chat. Like it's worked, but boy howdy, do you have to test some certain skills when you're deciding some of this stuff? All just so I could discipline myself to attempt to get this goal done this year. Because that was part of why I wanted to stream. It's like, well, if people miss the streams, like if people are like, oh, you didn't stream, it'd be like, oh yeah, I am now under pressure to stream to show my progress, do something regular to help keep me on track. Yeah, that's what 90% of this is. You just need to bang in that little bit of self-discipline that gets things done. And that's what I've been trying to build over these past couple of years. Now entering the third year of keeping track of what I paint throughout a year. And last year, 23, I painted relatively the same amount of models, which I was surprised by. I've technically painted less, just because like I've painted less big things. But I've painted the same amount of models. You know, it's the Gimli that still counts as one. So I'm hoping I can. I don't care about painting more models, if that makes sense. I want to make sure I'm painting at least regularly enough. That's technically what I'm tracking. and I tend to slow down in the first, be slow in the first half of the year, and then pick up. That seems to be the pattern. Partially because the pattern is in the middle of the year, I have some time off because I need to dog sit because my parents go on holiday. So I've got a couple of weeks. It's like, well, I'll get some fucking painting all day for several days in a row. And that does, in fact, help because I'll always be behind in the first half of the year. And then April or June time, I've suddenly got time. And it's like, well, can't just sit and watch YouTube all day. I have hobbies. And it's nice when you're sitting there and it's like, I want to. I want to do this. It's really, it's like it doesn't. I've not felt like I've needed to force myself to paint. I've painted because I've wanted to, and that just feels nice. Because when I was at my old job and before I built up the habit, yeah, the streaming setup is pretty is always hit and miss. Yeah, you kind of have to MacGyver something. But yeah, my old job, just because of like words, is because of like the schedule of that old job, with it being catering, was pretty chaotic and irregular. Made it really difficult to paint regularly. I have no idea how much I painted in terms of like volume of models between I think it was like 2018, 2021. That's how long I was at that job. Like I felt like I definitely painted a lot less than I do now. Like it was justified. I was exhausted all the time. I didn't have any spoons left after that, after those shifts, or because it was 2 a.m. after those shifts. And I knew I was in the next day, and then the next day, and I'd have a day off. And sorry, the phone just went on sleep. There we go. Paintbrush always ends up in my mouth. So yeah, it was just difficult to get the motivation to do much. Even during the lockdowns, to be fair, the lockdowns happened over what was about half of my time at that job. Those second and third lockdowns just turned into one big one for me, which I know not a lot of people enjoyed the lockdowns, but I think I feel like this always comes up at some point when I'm just left to ramble, just because it's all like done stuff for my mindset. But like I kind of benefited from the lockdowns, just being away from people. It's like, yeah, I've got time. I've got money still coming in because they actually set that up for us. Uh, and I was just like, well, I guess I'm just gonna figure out what's going on in this head. Well, I don't have to disguise what's going on in this head because I'm not around people. So I just kind of came out of the gate running after the lockdowns. Like, nah, I kind of know what's going on in here now. I feel a lot better for it. Even that was just because I got older. Like I was actually talking to my mum about this the other day, where sort of like people joke about, oh God, I'm 30, my life's over. I was like, nah, not by a fucking long shot. I honestly prefer how I am at 30, both physically and mentally and emotionally, than I was in my 20s by a fucking long shot. Just to get into personal stuff because I'm just being left to run. The mouth is just being left to run. This is what's coming out. So don't be scared about getting older. As long as you're doing the stuff you should be, you'll get better. Even if your situation doesn't improve all that much, you'll still get better at like getting what you can out of it, or like just having that. If you the Okay, when it comes to mental health, that requires a level of support. If you've not got any support, it will just get worse. But if you've got support as you get older, it'll get easier. Just to give hope to those that were going to be approaching these ages sooner than they think. I can tell you now, I remember being 26. Didn't feel amazingly long ago. Don't know why I said 26 specifically. That's just the number that came to mind. Because I think, yeah, It's looking all right for the silvers, at least in terms of what I use for the big brush. There's not a lot on the front, but there's a lot more on the back. The Omnispecs up here is going to be gold, that's for sure. Let's look on camera. So yeah, I think it's a little brush time for the silvers. And thankfully, silver goes on quite nicely in one coat. So, reward myself with another sippy. So, hour 20 in. Apparently, I've dropped about 60% of my frames. Not, not that it's incredibly noticeable, probably. Right, okay, so other bits to be silver. I can see just a little spot of white, which is the inside of a joint, just peeking through right here. Just that little hip joint. So just make sure I do the same on the other side. And I will probably have to fix up some of the yellow after this as well. And then the little clasps around the legs where they join on, just to help separate the suit from the rest of the armor. It's the inside of the knee joint there. I always worry about having silver bits right next to yellow. Like when I'd done some base coating on the Thunderstrike not long after I got it, and that's got like, if you imagine there's a little flyer, there's the yellow armor, and there's all sorts of techie bits that you would imagine would be silver, so it's a real balancing act on some parts. Just to make sure you're not mucking up another colour accidentally. Because painting is a messy process. That's why it's easier to paint a messy thing than a clean thing. So a clean thing requires at least a level of control to be brought in at some point. The back of the heel as well, because that's where the servo clicks. This big piston clicks onto the foot. I actually missed the side of it here. In fact, hold on. Let me just bring up the model to check something. Yeah, there's a whole sort of thing around the foot, so just make that silver. I thought it was just like a little thing he was standing on, but no, it actually goes over and around the foot. I guess that makes sense. So like it can track the movement of his legs from all of the joints. That's something I do like about these mods. Like it's crazy ass sci-fi stuff that really doesn't make sense to make, but you can look at it. It's like, I can see where they've tried to design this to look feasible. Seeing pistons in places where they should, it would make sense for there to be, and joints that make sense. So there's some level of understanding. Like I'm no engineer. I can't say whether or not these would actually, physically work. I mean, just look at Space Marine armor in general. But like, it's believable, at least. You know, that's something. Even the Orc stuff, which is literally just powered by gasoline and dreams, that still looks feasible. It's got to be believable for an Orc. The Orc's got to believe in it to work for it to actually work. They don't know they've got that weird ability where, like, if you believe hard enough, it just works. No, they actually have to believe. It'll just work, and that's just how stuff works. Work, 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 work. God, the English language is a fucking mess. But yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of yellow to clean up. But I think we're most of the way there with some of these base coats. I think I'll wash the metallics before I before I clean up and shade the yellow, because otherwise I'll just be cleaning up the same things over and over again, and that's boring and a waste of time and paint. Okay. I'm losing camera view again. Get silver up in there still. At the front. Oh, yeah, the inside of the rocket launchers. And clean up the black there, and the missile tips will be red, because why would you not paint a missile red? There we go. I'm debating that buckle being silver, but let's look at the others. They've got decoration. I'll keep that buckle yellow then. Keep it consistent. Yeah. Yeah, just thinking what else to talk about. Like, obviously, like I've talked over the model stuff. I have been. Well, I was saying to Ryan. I don't know if I should. You're not using the VTuber profile. I can call you Ryan. That picked up a Pokemon like TCG pre-con a while ago, a little Tinkerton one. I think I've probably mentioned it before at some point. And then when I was out, I actually went to the Hanley, like that won't don't say where you actually live, Dan. I went to the local GW just to pick up something else I wanted for the Lizard Men alongside the Army book. And when I was still in town, I ended up grabbing some more Pokemon cards. It was like one of the little box sets that they do, but for Iron Valiant, which is a paradox that I really like. Like, yeah, it's great. It's the same type as the Tinkerton deck, Psychic type, because of how the typings work in TCG. And so I grabbed it and opened up some packs. And looking at some of the cards, like it was Charcadet, which I know can evolve into Ceruledge from playing the video games. It's like, oh, that'll be Psychic type too. And it's a fire type. And this also came with Iron Moth, which is a fire type. I could do a fire psychic deck. And your brain just sort of goes, it's like, oh, I could just make a deck. I don't know if it'd be good, but like there'd be at least a cohesive idea. There's a strategy behind it. Like, oh, draw cards do damage. Yeah, that seems like something a psychic type would do. It's like, oh, so I guess I'm just going to be building a Pokemon deck and collecting some of the nicer looking cards. Whoops. I won't do what I've done with Magic. I'll keep it casual, that's for sure. I'll probably keep it to because Pokemon did a thing where they changed the color of the borders. Used to be yellow, now they're silver. It's like I'll keep it to sets with silver bordered cards because I know just saying silver bordered would mean something to the majority of people here that know Magic. So I'll just limit the sets that I would pull from. I don't really care about format because that's basically got extended and standard and stuff in it. I'll just have a deck that I can casually play with friends or just whatever. So, I've set myself limits. I'm not going to fall down that rabbit hole, but it's like, yeah, it's just another thing to play. Because that seems to be my prerogative at the moment. It's like, don't fall too intensely into everything. Like, Warhammer makes sense. You've been doing it for 13 odd years now at this point. Magic you fell really deep into, but you're kind of less into it now. Like I've literally been selling off decks. Not that I dislike the game, it's just like I just don't want to go as deep into it. I'll still buy cool precons like the Doctor Who ones or the Fairy one from Eldraine, just because it's like, it's one time sale. I don't have to think about adding or changing the deck. I just have a deck. And just vibing with it. Just playing more games casually over a couple of games super intensely just seems to be my prerogative at the moment, which I think is probably going to be better overall. Really, like, oh, this game just is kind of in a position where stuff kind of sucks at the moment. Guess I'll just go play one of the other ones for a little bit until stuff's fixed because companies have realized that you have to actively update and balance games even on tabletop. Took GW a while to figure that one out, and now the game's better than ever. I don't care what edition you think is best. The fact that the editions are actually like the current edition is actually getting balanced immediately makes it better than anything pre 7th edition. And 7th edition was a mess, which I do not miss. So I will say that on record. I don't think that's controversial at all. If it's controversial to anyone, I hate to say you're wrong. No, let's not be too mean. They used 7 for Horus Heresy. They just removed most of the bullshit. BRB gonna hop in bed. You get comfy, ride. You get comfy cozy. Can I blame you? Because we're what? It's yeah. Wow, it's 9:30. We are an hour and a half in, and we are at this stage. So, what else do I need silver? There's a little bit of the palm down here, and there's little joints on the thumb. Let me just contort my hand. Get down there. Another Discord chat updated. Like, Discord's got the sense to mute itself when you're streaming on the device you're streaming from. So having 2 devices with Discord on it, you're gonna hear some updates. But at least it worked because it actually let Dana contribute to the conversation about Ixalan's Seraphon. I do find that funny though. Both Games Workshop and Wizards of the Coast zeroed in on Aztec dinosaurs. I mean, it works. Thematically, it works. What with the whole Quattle thing? Quattle? I should really brush up on the history of that area because you've got the Aztecs, you've got the Incans, you've got the Olmecs. 3 vastly different cultures, all kind of disappeared because the Spanish. Granted, the Spanish were over there trying to compete with us, so a little bit of shared blame there. That's the whole colonization thing for you. Let's not get too deep into that rabbit hole, but yeah, definitely want to learn more about those cultures. I just find them kind of fascinating. Partially just because there's not really much else like them. Oh, that one was another Patreon update. Oop, I just closed the stream. Bring that back up so I can look at chat. Nothing else crazy. Hey, yeah. Let's clean up some of the black bits before I start hopping on with the Nuln Oil. Won't need a lot. There's not a lot on this that's going to be black. Because the black with the Nuln Oil, it's not going to look incredibly different, but it would look different if I went back and touched it up post wash. So let's just very quickly, shouldn't take long, not like black ever struggled to go over yellow. And that was something I was, that's just reminded me of something I was considering for any future streams where because this one is the typical ones of the ones I've done. I'm just sitting here talking to myself. But if someone wanted to hop in on a call with me and we just chat, like if someone wanted to just talk about painting, just to pick my brain whilst I did something, that could be interesting. Again, that's if anyone wanted to do that. Or, I don't know, just talking about anything. We're basically making a podcast. I mean, every white person's got to have a podcast at some point, right? Just as long as it's not true crime, I think we're good. True crime or cryptocurrency, then at least we're doing something slightly unique, because those seem to be the typical white boy topics. Let's see, yeah, the missile casings. I say that I definitely know more women that have got into forensics than men, and the number is more than 1. That's for sure. Yeah, just rebase the missile pods. It's because they were sacrificial. I wasn't going to try and be tidy around those. I knew they would be super easy to clean up. And sometimes you just got to be messy with one color. You might as well be messy with the color that's hard to get coatings on. Yeah, take too much to get the missile tips red if I accidentally get some black on them. And if I get the black on the silver, that's shading. Half of art is just making a mistake and playing it off like it was on purpose. That's why in music they tell you not to stop if you fuck up, just carry on. Because if you stop and try and start over, you're just gonna mess everything else up and lose the flow and the rhythm. The same in any other art. It's like, well, you made a mistake. You can either waste a load of time trying to fix it or embrace it. The rest should be our engine panels. Quetzalcoatl. Yeah, that's one of the ones I was talking about. That's one of the gods, but I think there's a bunch. Like I used Quetzal there as like a catch-all because like they've sort of developed into their own fantasy trope of just like any sort of winged snake gets referred to as a Quetzal. Quetzal. I'm still not 100% on the pronunciation. But again, I think that one's Aztec. I think. I don't know if it's not Olmec. They're the ones that did the giant heads. As much as I hate to say it, most people are probably mainly familiar with the Olmec through like Spelunky. Which, no judging. That's just how the world is at the moment. But they were known for just, kind of like how the Maori just sculpted the like big Easter Island heads. I think those are just called Maui. I think. I will gladly be corrected if I am wrong. That's another culture I just find kind of fascinating, like the Polynesian side. Which is like, yeah, our entire culture is just like sailing. That's why we're in both Hawaii and New Zealand. We just kind of sailed the entire Pacific. So yeah, we're just kind of there and there. Ignore the giant ocean between the two. We just got on boats, and then the Europe just struggled to get over the Atlantic without like having to eat maggot-infested biscuits to survive. Right, I think that's all the black tidied up. That was nice and simple. So I think we can just move on to our wash, get our first wash on this guy. But let's just capture the moment where this guy is just base coats. What about crypto crime? Hey, that you got CoffeeZilla for that. That's a channel I've ended up watching. A little over dramatized for the stuff he's covering, which is mostly like crypto and other finance scams, but you just see how deep it goes. Turns out, hey, you want an unregulated economy, an unregulated currency. Guess what happens? It gets stolen because there's no one there to regulate people doing scams. Crazy, I know. There does seem to be more of a delay at the moment, but whatever. It's not huge. I'll just have the title card go up for a little while. Well, the title card, I mean the bunny. Yeah, here he is currently. Let's get him where I've actually set up my focus. Just base coats, no washes, and it kind of works. Considering most of this is going to end up like light, and the crest is, well, it's mainly white just because I've not painted it yet. That is working. Yeah, that color sort of layout is working. It makes them look less chunky because the bit that is their chest just looks like their chest rather than the missile pods as well. They looks a little better. See, sometimes you don't need to do huge modifications to a model to improve them. Sometimes you just need to be a little smarter with how you paint them. Granted, these guys are still ridiculous with freaking underslung las cannons, but I don't know. There's a charm to the ridiculousness too. It makes them damn complicated to paint, that's for sure. Right, base coating washing the silver. Just going to be a nice and simple application of Null Oil. Because metallics don't need to be complicated. You can make them complicated. You saw what I did with Dante. That was really fun. He came out really well in the end. We should probably show that off on stream, just as a follow through. From the previous stream back in September. Maybe after this, because I can just stand up and grab him in a second whilst I wait for this to dry a little bit. Because I don't think anyone's actually seen this in person yet either, because I've not used him in a game just yet. He'd go really well with Sanguinary Guard, to be fair. I just haven't grabbed any of them yet. They might get a points reduction actually in the balance update, and if they do, I'll consider grabbing some. I'll paint them up like Blood Angels instead of Lamenters, just because it doesn't make sense for the Lamenters to have Sanguinary Guard, if you ask me. And I can't think of a way of painting them differently that would make them feel like Lamenters but still look like Sanguinary Guard. So, just like I did with Dante, I'll just paint them up as Blood Angels that have hopped along to hell. I'm also in a weird point where it's like there are some Space Marine things from other chapters I want to paint up. Like I keep looking at the lion, just because like I painted Gilliman. It makes sense to paint the lion, and it's a really cool model. And yeah, there's that little bit of temptation. Like it would be green. It'd be a big green Space Marine instead of a bunch of yellow Space Marines. Not that I would use them in a game just because Dark Angels are a lot different from Blood Angels. I would have to drop some of my units if I wanted to try the Dark Angels rules. But like, I don't know. Like I say, I painted Gilliman. He can just sort of like stay on my shelf with him. He can just hang out with his brother staring down Abaddon. Yeah, the Maui heads are super cool. I wish they got more attention than they did. Yeah, I mean, there's research gone into them. It's just not like widely published because it's not on most people's radar. Like, I'm pretty sure there was a thing a while ago where they just started digging underneath them and they just found the rest of the statue. Like, they weren't just heads, they were just entire like statues of people. They just sunk into the ground over goodness knows how many centuries. Like a lot of like a lot of the mythology is interesting too for the Polynesian side of things. Like I'm sure most people have seen Moana, but that diverges a lot from the mythology. It hints at some of the stuff, which I think is quite neat. I don't think you could ever put how Maui died in a Disney film, though. That was an interesting read. But like it hints at like him being abandoned as a baby and his like tattoos and things like that. So they got that bit right. There's they probably had a cultural advisor on the team to help make sure they got something right. And but so like there's a lot more to any mythology than what ends up in the Disney films, I can assure you. Oh, now I'm just thinking like maybe half the reason I'm interested in it is because like Bionicle took a lot of notes from the Polynesian culture to the point where they actually got sued for using certain words, not incorrectly, but like words that were meant for people of high office or respect for, the little robot action figures. It's like, yeah, you know what, fair. I think, what was it? Was it Taruga? The chiefs for the villages that they had to change the name for them because they were seen as disrespectful to just borrow that word for their toys. I've absolutely confused the Virgin Fortress. Yeah, but the training suits have just. What do you mean the dude is in Lion? The, he's private. He's the funk huge. His dad was funk and huge. Like I've seen the model for Vulcan. He's a Salamander Primarch, and he was big for a Primarch. He is a huge model. But he's also got a like jolly giant vibe, which is quite fun for a character. Like, yes, I am a massive blacksmith and I can be incredibly angry, but also if you're nice to me, then you're my friend. It's like, yeah, Vulcan's cool. Probably, I wouldn't say second favorite Primarch, but he's up there. Lorgar can sit down at the bottom. Little church boy. Got angry that his dad wouldn't let him worship him. That's it. That's your. I mean, I'm sure there's probably more if I read the Horus Heresy, but like to me, that's Lorgar's entire character arc. Your dad didn't let me worship him, so I'm gonna go worship the other cool guys with red horns and fire coming out of their face. He seems cool. He seems legit. It's like, sure, Lorgar. Altharius's betrayal made more sense than that, but sure. And we don't even know if Altharius actually betrayed, because the Alpha Legion, the whole meme is duplicity. Right. Okay. Yeah, the silver washed up fairly quickly. I wanted Gilliman to synthwave with and have Calgar and Ironfather. Ooh, yeah. A synthwave Gilliman. Like with. If I actually grab the model, I'll wait for that to dry. I mean, if I get a line, you're certainly welcome to paint it. I mean, I would be tempted. If you got the line out, I would be very tempted to paint him. Like, this is my Gilliman that I painted ages ago. He's actually roughly the size of Centurion. That's kind of funny. And I did this years ago. This was in that 2018 to 2021 period. It's one of the few things I actually got done. And goodness gracious, the amount of filigree on this fucker. That took ages to paint, but it came out really cool with a big flaming sword. The only thing I feel I could improve is how the fire's reflecting on the back of his leg there. And it's a little messy in comparison to how I paint nowadays. And I still paint kind of messy, but it's like accidentally messy rather than on purpose messy. Messy, messy, messy. I don't even like football. But yeah, the Primarchs are a lot of fun to paint just because they are big, elaborate Space Marines for all intents and purposes. And he literally gets to sit on my shell next to Abaddon, just staring each other down because they're kind of sculpted too. Like if you try and line up the flames, oh god, they're like opposite directions. They're sort of meant to be staring down each other like that. So like face to face at an angle, sort of grrr. But Abaddon also quite fun to paint. I kind of was a bit experimental of how I did the cape, and it came out quite well. But just massive space marine with lots of detail. It's a fun model style to do up. The sword as well, for how simple, drop my paintbrush, for how simple that paint job was, came out pretty neat. Put those back. But yeah, some waving up a bunch of those Space Marine characters would be quite cool. Applying the sort of purple, pinks, and yellows that you do for your Space Marines onto Gilliman would be interesting. Don't know quite how you do it with Calgar out of your normal route. Mine's probably most fucked up death. Out of the characters that are used for the original Disney stories, yeah, Maui's death is probably the most fucked up. I've seen the film. I'm pretty sure he doesn't die in the film. I don't remember. I feel like I would remember. But like, compare how Maui dies in the original mythology that I don't think I can say on YouTube to how the Little Mermaid dies in the original Hans Christian Eriksen story. She just fucking turns into sea foam out of depression. I know which one I'd rather not. Ah, man. Hey, we're almost 2 hours in. What I'll do, uh, this is mostly going to be dry. There's going to be some points where it's still a little wet, but I think mm, if I soak up some of the excess here and there that's touching the yellow, I can clean up the yellow. I'll see where I am after cleaning up the yellow, and then see if I can get away with shading the yellow on stream. If not, I'll at least have a point where I've stopped and gotten a good chunk of the model done. I don't want to go too much longer than like 2 or 3 hours, just because I think that'll be a lot easier for me to do regularly. Um, There's not a whole massive amount where it's actually touching the yellow. It's just armpits there, but I'll do the legs later, and that's not a huge amount. Yeah, okay, let's get some cleaning up done. Just because I've already got it on my palette here. I don't need a massive brush for it. Okay. Oh, well, I accidentally threw something that was going to be yellow anyway. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm still feeling confident in being able to do this at least. This is the first Warhammer painting I've done this year, granted. Did a little bit of turnip stuff last night just because of keeping that simple. I was like, yeah, let's fuck it. Let's see what yellow and red knights look like. Base coats in a wash and they look fine. So hopefully, with what I've got to paint and how most of it is kind of half painted already, I'm feeling confident about this. Like I say, it might not get completely done by year's end, but I can get most of it done at least. Yeah, the gold on Guild Man, that is showing off the delay in the stream now. I think the delay is extended over the course of the stream, but yeah, the 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 gold that's what happens when you do gold shade with purple, highlight with silver. Just maximize the contrast, and it looks good. Like I know I was critical of the paint job when I showed it off, but I'd still it would still be up to a standard for me. Like I would still put that on the table and not feel bad. I think even manager for the local store because I had stuff displayed in a local store uh, whilst I was doing commission painting just to show it off, and I think no, I don't think I know because he asked the manager borrowed the model a couple of times for Gilliman to use in games because he had Gilliman just bare plastic, and it's like, well, I've got a fully painted Gilliman just sitting there. Ask the guy that did it if I can use it. It's like, yeah, sure, just don't break him. It's like, yeah, good way to show off something you've done is have someone else want to use it. I actually put a little smile on my face for that week. It was ages ago, granted, but like it was still like, yeah, there's a demand for my stuff. I did not paint the silver on that piston. Oh well, I'll fix that later. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, hopefully these guys, if I've gotten to this level on one in a couple of hours, these guys don't feel like they'd be much more complicated to paint than a regular marine. It's just that there's more. So I could probably paint these up in a pretty decent time frame. Pretty confident I could get these guys done for this month. And then next month I'll start something else. Show off these guys completed. Discuss any changes to the list from the January update. This will be early February, mind. So we'll see. Like I say, I want to do these monthly. It's because I think that's not going to be too much streaming to the point where I just burn out on it really quickly. Because when I tried to do it weekly, I just lost a lot of interest very quickly. But just doing it monthly, I can see myself doing that. So I pick a day where it's fairly chill. I've not got a lot going on in the surrounding days, and just do what I would normally be doing just while talking. Like I say, if someone wants to pop on as a co-host, just ask and let me know what days and see what can be arranged. Just because I think that might be a bit more of an interesting conversation. Yeah. The undersides don't need a huge amount of cleaning up either, because that's going to mainly be orange by the time I'm done. Just keep seeing Steam pop-ups on the corner. It's like, goddamn, go away, you're distracting. There we go. Yeah, that doesn't need to be crazy clean or perfect either. That's going to mainly end up orange. I mean, from the front, that's basically clean. Do need to do this knuckle down here, though. Fingers need a little bit more fine tuning. I do wonder why they gave these guys hands, by the way. They don't use them. Like, these guys do have a combat profile, but it's basically the same as every other Space Marine, with maybe a little bit higher strength just because they're bigger. But like the close combat version of this unit, they have close combat weapons in the form of like replace these guns with massive mining drills. That's what they've got. They don't use their hands. Why do they have hands? I prefer these designed to the Desolator Marines, sure, but like I can understand the concept there. It's just they made the missile launchers for the Desolators too big. That was it. But like I will argue that Desolator should have been Gravis rather than just a normal Primaris holding a really big missile launcher. Like we got Gravis Marines for the heavy weapons. We got the Melter squad, then the heavy Bolter squad in Gravis, and the heavy Flamer squad in Gravis because those are both aggressors. Why not just give us another Gravis unit? I think that would have worked a bit better. More Discord notifications that aren't Dana. Just to make sure she can add to any conversation. That's most of the cleaning up at the top. Butt plate, butt plate, butt plate. That just needs a straight line and just making that yellow again. Don't need nothing fancy. Yeah. If this can be done in a couple of hours, then doing it 2 more times will probably take a little less than 4 hours. It's because the repetition you tend to get a little faster, especially if you have breaks in between. Like that's something I'll get asked. Like, oh, how long did that take to paint? It's like, oh, I did it over multiple sessions, and those sessions together were around about this many hours. But I know for a fact, if I tried to paint something, like say something took 8 hours over the course of like 2 or 3 sessions, like like a couple 2 hour sessions, a 3 hour session, stuff like that. I know if I tried to paint something for 8 hours straight, I would have made so much less progress just because you slow down so much over the course of those hours for various reasons, being you're more likely to be interrupted over a longer length of time, you lose energy, you lose motivation, it can become a slog after the third hour. I think that's something people can forget. So they'll try. That's why I don't like those. I try and paint an army in 24 hours. It's like, it will be painful. Not just because it's 24 hours straight, but because you will do less than you would spreading those same 24 hours over several sessions. It is a fool's errand, but it gets clipped. If I ever did anything like that, it would be for a charity event, I think. But that would involve having an audience outside of my close friends. Would be nice to do. I like the idea of, doing charity stuff just by doing the stuff I would normally do and just sending the money elsewhere. But I am not in the position to do it, to put it plainly. I mean, I found that out trying to do a charity auction last year, back in March. No, I finished the model back in March. Was it June or July? I always get those 2 months mixed up. It's like, didn't work on eBay. Ended up, thankfully, a local store doing a charity event for a different charity than I intended, but hey, a charity is a charity. I did a little bit of research. I was like, no, these ones are fine. Because that's an unfortunate thing that can happen with certain charities where I was like, oh, they're a bunch of scumbags disguising themselves as a charity. How fantastic. So, always background check these things. There we go. Don't need the back of the legs to be perfect because they're going to just end up under a load of orange shading. Always feel free to help out to join in on the painting. Well, you don't have to be painting. You can, just like I say, just a co-host. Just in the back, just someone to chat and ask questions or just conversate. Whoever feels up to it, I'm more than willing to have alongside. I just got an actual DM. Okay, that's just an update on something. That is perfectly fine. Apparently, paintbrushes give me a lisp. That finger's tidied up on that side, not on the other side. Jeez. I just covered up over the knuckle. Whatever. Think the tiny little bits of silver are fine to leave to do after everything else. After the tidying up, after the shading, just just put a dot of silver on there, and then that'll look fine. You can get away with that. Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely given myself goals for this year, which I think is something important. Something to strive for that just isn't survive and work. Keeps you saying, yeah, fuck it, the knuckles I'll just do after everything else is done. Granted, I've been thinking about some work related stuff, but I've already had that conversation with folks, so don't need to repeat myself on that one. Just put a little bit of thicker layer over that dot to fuck it off. There we go. Right, let's get that piston I missed and after a drink. Just hit the 2 hour mark. Could go for another hour. 11, I think, would be a perfectly fine spot to stop. So, you know what? I won't say 11. Either 11 or when I've got the first. It won't take that long actually now to just get the first layer of shading down on the yellow. So, yeah, I'll do the first layer of shading on the yellow and we will call it there for tonight. Because that will also just help some definition on some things as well. Right, so before I start shading on the yellow, let's just clean off this brush because it's had a lot of silvers, a lot of black on it, and I don't want that mixing in with my yellow. There we go, a little bit of brush soap. And that is looking clean. And this will also just help it look nicer for the camera because it'll add some definition to the yellow, so it's not just lemon. As much as I love Avalon Sunset, it is probably one of the better yellow paints I have used. Any base coat looks flat when it's just the base coat. It's all point of shading. So, Iyanden Yellow, which is a contrast, is literally the first shade of yellow I use. And it is literally just all over. I don't do anything smart with this. Just slop it all on, let it find home. We'll tidy up with the Avalon after the fact to help get this first shade gradient going. Just watch out for any pooling, just slobbing in it on. You can see already what it's done for the torso and the legs. Adding that little bit of orange, I think, also helps because a lot of people struggle with shading yellow. They'll just immediately go for like browns. It's like, yes, it's a bit too harsh of of a drop down in tone, and you lose a lot of saturation doing that. Which I mean, it's yellow. If you lose the saturation in yellow, you just kind of get a dirty white. So I like to use something a bit more orangey. I will use a bit of a brownish orange. That's the second shade, but that is also just all like my recess shade as well. So all over there, you can see immediately what it's doing, and it will sort of settle and spread out a little bit. And it'll also just add a little bit of warmth to anywhere where the yellow I've tried to fix up, but it's still come out a little greyish. Just add a little bit of warmth back and help hide that little bit of it's laziness is what it is. I won't sugarcoat that word. Anything that's a little patchy, I might just try to sell off as battle damage because, like, look at these fuckers. They're gonna get dinged up, aren't they? It's like if you see a 4x4 that's like perfectly pristine, it's like that thing has not touched any mud before in its existence. You are not using that vehicle for what it is intended for. Put it in its natural habitat. There we go. Even on the flat areas, it adds a little bit of a texture that I like. Like it is pooling in places and sort of like adding some splotches, which most people dislike. But like if you take those splotches again, it goes back to like, how musicians just have to keep playing if they make a mistake. I use that as an opportunity to just keep painting instead of trying to redo something. And it just gives it a different vibe. I like that's like it's high saturation, high contrast, clean, but there's just that little bit of splotchiness in the textures that just give it that little bit of an extra feeling that you don't actually have to try and do. Slowly working through that, guys. It'll be good to see how the armies look when we're both done. Yeah, that'll be something fun. You just all like compare progress, like because we're both doing wildly different schemes. Even on in terms of color wheels, yours is mostly purple, which happens to be the opposite of yellow. And then you've got an entirely different aesthetic as well, with like the yellows and the reds and the blues. Piston he missed and yeah. Okay, that tells me how far behind we are on the stream. If that's where the chat is catching up to. Yeah, just get it on that fist. Little bit in that armpit that is yellow. And then we will finish off by doing the head, because I like to do the head last. It's like when I built Bionicles, to go back to them, the head went on last. That was something I would be anal about. It just felt weird having a torso half built looking at me. He can't look at me until he's done. Like, father, why don't I have legs? Ooh, that's building up back there. There's a little bit of me that would want them to bring back Bionicle, but also not. Like, it just wouldn't be the same. Not in like a bad way, just like you couldn't have it be the same 20 years later. Well, not quite 20. 15? Yeah, about 15 years later. That little bit. Yeah, just different people working on it, different design sensibilities, and modern approaches to things. Like they tried to reboot Bionicle once, and it was just kind of. And there we go. Finish off with that snogging. Should really help sell size and weight of these things when they are fully shaded. That I will probably do tomorrow off stream. And these guys will be the unit for the month because I think, from what I remember from the list, I've got about a unit per month to do. I've got these guys for January. Uh, these guys, Death Company, Assault Marine. Well, jump intercessors. In terms of infantry, captain for the character, chaplain for a character, or the other characters are painted completely. Thunderstrike, Land Raider, Brutalis. These guys I've already counted, yeah. Vanguard veterans, yes. Why did I forget those? Who my captain joins. So that's 10. 10 units with a couple of months then to do other things maybe, or just for Land Raider. Fuck yeah, that's gonna take a while. Yeah. Yeah, the Land Raider is probably more than likely going to feature in a couple of streams, just because it's fucking huge. And I got the Spartan from Horus Heresy off of Jason, and it's a much better model. It's slightly bigger than the normal Land Raider, but it's a much better model by miles. Right, yes. So that is where I am going to finish off for today. He is still drying, of course, from the shading pass. Let's get him in focus. But considering he started off pure white, that's not bad for a couple of hours. There'll probably be some touch-ups. I could see some bits I've missed. But if I could do that in a couple of hours, I could do the same for these two in a little less of that time, partially because I've already done the black and the silver layering. So this unit, I'm pretty confident I can do for January. Yeah. Okay, that is a good sign. That's a great way to start off this mission. So, I mentioned showing off the Dante from last stream. Let me just put him in the middle. Let me just go grab him. I'm just going to have to take off my headset. Slap bang in the middle of the force. Just pop you there. No spoilers. But I will knock some bits and bobs and knock my blind. Right. Didn't just mute myself, did I? No. Got the mute button on the back of one of my cans. But this, I've already shown it off in pictures on Twitter and on Facebook. But this is where the Dante ended up. Between the stream, ooh, the base rim needs a little touch up. Between the stream and everything else afterwards, because I got bored. I was off work for 2 weeks. This took about 8 hours total. Considering that's not bad for me, but granted, I find metallics a lot easier to paint. I'm also really proud of that axe blade. If I can get it in focus. Yeah, it looked powered up and glowy. And then I've got like that spark on the edge. And yeah. Not painted the entire army to this standard, of course. I put in the extra effort for Dante. You kind of got it. You know, chapter master and all of your father chapter. But just as an example, I obviously going to be painting stuff off stream, just like I did with him. There's the line. Yeah, that puts him right in the middle. And if I slap a paintbrush underneath the handle, with a little bit of expert balance, I don't need to break out the blue tack to make him look at the camera almost. I might need to break out the blue tack. Screw it, we'll do it. Let's be cute about it. A little bit of blue tack, stick him in the center of the frame. There's where we are after 2 hours and 10 minutes. Not counting the 3 minutes just passed for me fucking about. So, not bad at all. Right. Ooh, yeah, we'll have to have it look into decreasing the delay. It seems pretty huge. It got worse over the course of the stream. Like at first it was less than a minute, and now it seems to be a couple of minutes. Might just be like I'm on wireless, I'm on Wi-Fi. We know that there's some latency there. There's the latency in my own Wi-Fi, the latency probably in YouTube server, and then the latency from YouTube server to however it gets to everyone else at home. Yeah, that's part of why I was thinking as well, having other people on the stream talking with me, just because it's like I do get a conversation. There's a back and forth, and it it doesn't require waiting for the chat to catch up. But yeah, that seems to be where I'm going to stop for tonight. But still, that's a good sign. If that's how long this took, then I think this project is going to be doable. So, thinking over it, next month, I'm going to presume I'm going to have the Centurions done by then. That's about 3-4 weeks from now, depending on when in February I can stream. So hopefully then I can show off this unit completed. I'm giving myself homework. It's fine. I can show off this unit completed. I can discuss any changes that have happened to the list again because of any balance patches for the game. I can. Oh, I'll have to pick what I'm painting next. It might be one of the jump intercessor units, just because there's two of them. I didn't want to start with one, but I might as well get one out of the way early. You know, these guys are big and chunky, and are going to look cool on the table. Let's give myself a little bit of something sweet as a starter. You know, before the main course, which is mostly going to be savory. Uh, from there, I'll have to see how I feel about what I paint next, but that'll be March, and that's 2 months away. Let's not think about that too hard. And then, of course, any changes to the list based on how it plays. I feel confident in the list, and building lists in 10th feels easier than ever to get something usable online. But we'll have to see. Also, I'm going to want to be painting my dinosaurs because fucking dinosaurs are cool as shit. I'm really happy with how the models came out. And especially if I just bought a box on a whim, thinking like, okay, I've been thinking about these guys, and this box seems cheap. Oh, this is 1,000 points. Oh, if I get this other character that might be a bit better, I can add more of the models from this box and still have it be 1,000 points. I just don't have to learn how a wizard works just yet. Just drop the salon, add more of the chameleons, and add my leader character being a dinosaur riding a dinosaur. Sure, I'll do that. I'll worry about wizards at 2K and probably more characters. Great. So that will be me for tonight. Thank you, folks, for joining me. We will have to see what we can do about the stream delay, like you said, Ryan. Uh, I'm not 100% there. You've probably literally the past few minutes of the stream have been me audio and you guys watching this guy dry. So we'll cut it. Nothing else interesting is going to be happening from here. And painting for 2 hours is more than enough. Well, it's not more than enough for me. It's enough for me. Uh, so yeah, hopefully I can crack these guys out, get them done, and we shall go from there. It's time for me to go on the standby screen. Thank you for joining me once again, and enjoy what's left of your evening.